Kemba concerns. All right, we are live with the Garden Report. Jimmy Toscano's head's cut off. He's a little orange. He's got a nice boy's haircut.
He's always
Am I
happy.
There's a tanning machine just blasting him right now.
Yeah, we're happy.
Oh,
yeah.
and you got now. See, he's all insecure now. Look what you did now. He's blocking his whole view now.
Yeah,
I'm trying to wipe the screen.
Jimmy,
Nick's always on me about the blurriness.
Jimmy's Trump tan going. We're live with the Garden Report.
Naturally.
Trump tan.
All natural.
Officially, we believe
we got big news.
NBA season's underway. We had a lot of off-season fun, off-season editions of the Garden Report. A ton of stuff went down, obviously, and there's still a ton of things going on with the Celtics. But the season kind of sort of began, and it's on. I mean, they've announced the upcoming opponents. We'll talk about that a little bit. Training camp, so to speak, a really, really short one. The team's reporting, they're practicing. We've got massive Celtics news. Media day, we've heard from a bunch of players. We've heard from Danny Ainge. We've heard from Brad Stevens. We are, however, going to begin with some breaking news. First, I want to tell people about our sponsor, Manscaped, 20% off, free shipping with the code GARDEN20 at manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping with the code GARDEN20 at manscaped.com. Jimmy Toscano, Josue Pavon, Bobby Manning, and a little bit of breaking news. We'll just hit it right off the top. John Wall for Russell Westbrook. Blockbuster trade right out of the gate. Initial
Crazy
reactions on this before we get to the Celtics.
Go.
Nothing, guys. You guys had nothing about this one?
Hey, we want to give you the lead off. You were loving it.
Go.
Oh, man, I love this trade. I love this big time because I want to see how John Wall can do in a new setting. And I also, of course, want to see if Russell Westbrook can actually put it together, of course. Last season was, I'm not going to call it a flat-out disaster, but let's call it what it was. It was a flat-out disaster. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, Houston, they needed a change, and I think it was going to be really difficult for them, or at least I thought it was going to be difficult for them to find another team to take on Westbrook, at least this early. They found the Washington Wizards. I guess we should have seen this one coming, so to speak. But at the same time, if you're the Wizards, if you're the Rockets, John Wall, James Harden, can this happen? Are we going to see a replica of what we saw this past season, or are they going to be able to put it together? I don't know. What do you guys think? I love it. I like their chances.
So I'm weary of the Rockets going into this season trying to go for it, because what are you going for? The 8th seed? I get you don't have your first round pick for a bunch of years now because of this disastrous Westbrook trade. Going to go down as one of the worst trades of all time, acquiring him for a bevy of first. I don't know what they're going for here. It's either them or the Warriors as the 8th seed, I guess, at the bottom of that conference. I say you just dump off all this talent. You don't want to just dump Harden. That you got to get the right trade for him, certainly. But getting Westbrook off like this and acquiring another first, they got 2 firsts from Portland for Robert Covington. They're off to a good start. They got Christian Wood, who's a great young player. DeMarcus Cousins is going to try to rebrand himself there. So I guess they start this season, try to get something from Wall, try to get something from Cousins, let Harden do his thing, and they'll be exciting again until they find that right trade for Harden. There's no rush on that.
What's Wall's injury status right now?
So he missed a year and a half with the
right
Achilles.
now, is he expected?
He's ready to go. Yep, he started training camp for the Wizards yesterday.
Despite the bad player, I prefer Wall over Westbrook 10-1 here. I again, you don't know if he's a diminished version of himself, and he's got issues as well. I'm just so down on Westbrook. I have been for years. I just think he's a detriment to your team. It becomes the Russell Westbrook show. He only knows how to play one way. He's not good enough at other things to be a complementary player. He can't just spot up and shoot or do whatever. He has to have the ball. He has to attack. He has to take bad shots because that's the only way he knows how to play. I don't know what he does for any team. I think this is a kind of you take my star, I take your star. We'll see if the new scenery makes it better for both parties, but shoulder shrug, I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I mean, Rockets got a first-round pick out of it. Whether or not it's going to be worth much, who knows? But, I mean, watching Russell Westbrook in the bubble, in the playoffs, I mean, if you guys watched that game, and I'm sure you did because we were all watching every bubble game, I mean, he was way out of sorts. I mean, I couldn't believe this guy was like the biggest liability on the court, turning the ball over left and right, couldn't even hit a free throw when it mattered. And it was just so obvious that he was overthinking or just wasn't comfortable out there. I don't know exactly why. So I wasn't surprised to see that he wanted a change of scenery. Too bad the way things kind of ended up for John Wall in Washington. It seemed like, obviously he had such a promising start to his career, and then injuries kind of took over. And I guess the tenure, his tenure there will probably be, seen as, what could have been sort of thing, because
Yeah, it was his team. Now it's Bradley Beal's,
Yeah, I mean, by default, I think Bradley Beal just took it over. I think that was easy because John Wall just couldn't stay on the court. So I'm pumped to see John Wall play again. I hope that he's healthy. I hope that he can, form a good, if Harden stays with the team, hopefully, they could form a nice 1-2 punch there. But yeah, the Rockets will be fun to watch to an extent, but they're the Rockets. They're destined to lose, in the playoffs like they always do. It doesn't really matter who they trade for. It's just how it's going to be.
You just want to tackle him when he's on the court. He's impossible to watch. Anyway, we're just hit this because it's breaking news. It's not our intention to talk about it. We have a ton of stuff to talk about, Celtics related. I guess it's a coin flip to me between continuing to break down the Hayward situation or Kemba. Kemba's real. The Hayward situation continues to be intriguing to me, and obviously
we're done with Hayward. He's in Charlotte.
We're not done. There's a little bit of new news with the Hayward stuff.
Not only are we not done, I'd be stunned if we don't spend the majority of the program on it. But
yeah, right. Says the guy who's going to be saying the most Hayward stuff at some point in this show. It will come back to Hayward. It always does.
Let's get into Kemba. We've got
Kemba's more newsy, so we'll get into Kemba.
I don't know how to. So I don't know what the vibe is out there with people. I don't want to be an alarmist or Mr. WebMD Google, WebMD doc at home, but
you'll try.
Kemba spoke today, and he's amazingly sunny and positive about everything. And he just talked about it it's a setback. Brad said the same thing. It's just strengthening. If the season was starting in January, we'd be fine. You guys might not even know about this. No big deal. That's not how I see this. We've got a guy who, once again, after a 4-month window in the bubble, before the bubble started, had issues as soon as he started playing basketball again. Now here we are as training camp's about to begin, and it's, he's not even close to playing basketball again. The knee is obviously a real issue. Brad Stevens said it on one of our podcasts on CLNS Media last week. He's not going to be ready. That was kind of a little precursor to this. Yeah. 12 weeks stem cell injection in the knee. Almost every kind of Twitter doctor out there, and Jess D, I talked to Doc Jess Flynn from Boston Sports Journal. She said the same thing. She's been saying it forever. This is an arthritic condition more likely than not. This stuff doesn't necessarily get better. You may be able to kind of fight it off a little bit, but my fear here is there's no guarantee this gets better ever. It might be, okay. Best case scenario, I think, is management over a period of time with him missing some games, minutes restrictions, X, Y, and Z, and you hope you get through a season, but he might have to sit a whole bunch of games. Worst case is he comes back and it's it still sucks. It hurts like hell. I can't play. That's bad. The most telling comment Danny Ainge had in the whole thing, guys, was asked about whether this is a long-term concern. He said, this year is going to determine a lot of that. That's terrifying from Danny Ainge, who's normally going to say, it's totally nothing, rub some dirt on and he'll be back out there in 2 weeks. So around the horn, Josue, your thoughts here, just on hearing the news and your level of concern with Kemba.
No, you just nailed it with the Danny Ainge quote, because I thought that stood out as well, because I think it's really telling. I think it was really honest of Danny to say, let's face it, it's not going to get any better. That's exactly what this injection is. It's to boil it down, it's how is Kemba going to live with this now? How can you manage this pain? Can you, are you as mobile as you were throughout the postseason? If so, that's going to be a bad thing. As he said, he didn't feel good in the postseason. He doesn't want to feel like that again. He doesn't want to be able to or have to play with that level of pain. So I think that's what this shot is necessarily is. Can Kemba live with this? How can he manage this pain? The next 8 to 12 weeks, I think, is going to be, that's the goal. How can Kemba be most comfortable with this pain? And then let's just shoot for it through the end of the season, go through the postseason, and let's stretch it out. But at the same time, though, a limited Kemba. I don't think you see a full strength Kemba out there. Second night of back-to-backs, those type of stretches, forget it. That's out of the question for the Celtics team. This team is going for it. They're still going for it. If they weren't going for it, Kemba Walker would have been going through surgery, or they would have been taking another road, another step here. They're going for it here, guys.
Well,
I think a lot of this has to do also with how he's going to respond and how the team's going to look like without him. How strong can this team be? That first month of the season without Kemba Walker.
They can be solid. They can be solid without him. They've done it before. They plug in pieces.
I don't want to get into that yet because we're going to get into that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But
if I start talking about friggin' who's backing them up right now, I'm going to get too depressed to finish the hour.
What stuck out to me today?
Let's save that for the end.
Let me ask you, Bobby, just because you were on the chat today, what did you get off of it? Did you feel any better listening to him talking today?
Yeah, the key thing for me is he's going to take his time.
Of course you did.
I remember in the bubble.
Unbelievable.
He was it's a totally different Kemba yesterday. Sure, there was cheery optimism, as you say, John, but the biggest difference I saw between the bubble and today, he is going to take his time. He's not pushing to get back. He said he's excited to relax, take it easy, and
that's what the break was before the bubble, by the way. But okay.
Well, I'm just saying, when he gets back from the bubble,
that's
he's like,
what that was for, and it didn't work.
It was
4 months.
Yeah, did you forget the months that we had between games?
4 months.
Well, it's pretty clear that he was doing something during that time that must have aggravated it, got it flaring up again, some amount of training.
No, but
and this is what
helped him.
This is what I'm talking about. He was pushing to get back when the bubble comes up, and then they're taking him out of playoff games, trying to minimize those minutes, and he looked frustrated. Now he's willing to take the time. He's willing to do what it takes to get back out there.
Okay.
I thought there was some level of frustration in the bubble over the summer. Go ahead.
Okay, so everything is awesome, and Bobby's pumped.
I'm just saying he's buying into the approach now.
Yeah, Bobby's pumped because Kemba Walker's gonna take his time, and he's gonna slowly come back. And we're gonna be talking about when's Kemba Walker gonna be play for the Celtics. It's gonna be February. We're still gonna be talking about it. This is what the Celtics do with injuries. They kind of string you along. They don't kind of tell you exactly what's going on. You can.
Well, let me ask you this, Jimmy. Did it work or not in the bubble? Did the plan work or not?
No, it didn't work.
It worked. He was back to playing at a good level in the postseason.
Bobby, are you serious right now? I mean,
after he was scoring 20 points, he killed Philly, had a good series against Toronto overall. It tapered out at the end, but they got him back to playing at a high level.
People were dogging him against the Raptors, and people were dogging him against against the Heat. He had a good series against.
We're overstating how good he was in the playoffs in the bubble. I think he was fine, and then he was.
He was fine, we
and
all
then it was
said
not so good. Yeah,
we all said it doesn't look like Kemba out there. Something
even when he was efficient, he was 1-on, 1-off. He had a game where he took 7 shots. He wasn't even getting involved, and then another where that series he played well. He was 1-on, 1-off. It wasn't consistent there, and then he was just. His efficiency went out the window. He couldn't do anything he normally does.
Yeah. And that's exactly what they leaned on, especially in the fourth quarter. We'll get more into this later because I know we're going to talk about how this team is going to, try to survive without him. But that's a huge loss, and I think that's when his play was most magnified throughout the postseason. Was in the fourth quarter when they really needed those buckets. He wasn't there. It was a couple of turnovers. Defensively, he just wasn't himself.
And I'm not knocking him for the effort, and I give him all the credit in the world for wanting to play and coming back when he did. But I think the Celtics have said it, and he pretty much said it. He wasn't himself. They may have screwed up by rushing him back. So yeah, of course they're gonna go slowly here. But when you're talking about degenerative knee issue or whatever it is that's going on, it's not there's no way to paint this as a good thing. It's not a good thing.
No, there's no way. I'm not saying it's a good thing.
I'm saying getting stem cell treatment. There's not a it's a relatively.
That's a Hail Mary. That's a Hail Mary.
It's relatively new in the grand scheme.
And it's not
modern day.
Definitively something that works.
No, it's something that can certainly alleviate pain over time. But we're talking about your average Joe, I think, for the most part. I mean, Joe the plumber, gets a needle in his knee or whatever. He's not playing basketball 100 miles an hour against the best players in the world. That pain could probably come back a lot sooner for a guy like Kemba Walker to stay at the top level. So it's a little troubling for me to hear that. Now, I'm not going to say it's not going to work. What the hell do I know? It might work. It might make his knee less painful enough where he can be 90, 95% the way he was. And that's great. It's not something that you needed to work for the next 20 years. You needed to work for the next handful of years for him to finish out his career at a high level. So maybe in that sense it works, but it is troubling because you see Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. He had the stem cell. I think I saw Pau Gasol had the stem cell. There's been other athletes in pro sports. I know A-Rod did it. These guys are going to Germany for this stuff. So I don't even know how intense his is compared to those, but I know that there is a long process before you start to feel the pain. And, hopefully it does work because the Celtics are clearly going to need this guy.
Well, let's be clear. I do think, I don't know. And again, that's why I don't want to be alarmist and gloom and doom with it. But I'm surprised the amount of people are like, oh, it's just January. That's not what they said.
No,
that's not what they said.
They're going to give us an update.
They said in January they will assess his situation. That means nothing. There is no, in a perfect world, by January he starts to do basketball related activities, ramps it up, and comes back. Are you
guys truly worried about the team without him in January though? I mean, let this run till March.
No, what I'm saying is you get to January, it's not how long they're without him. When you get to January, what I'm saying is nothing is certain here. When you get to January, you might discover that things are not well.
Kemba Walker.
Then it's what the hell is plan B? And apparently the Celtics are all about plan Bs this year. You're stuck in that spot, which is like, oh crap, now what? So like I said, this is a bit of a Hail Mary. It may work, it may not. It may do just enough to get him through this year, and then you kind of start the process over and see what happens beyond that. It may not be good at all. We don't know.
If I'm Brad Stevens, I'm going into the season as if Kemba Walker's out for the entire year. I mean, that has to be your approach. That has to be the mentality for this team, because if you're leaning on a comeback from Kemba, that's a really risky place to be, especially with these young guys. We all know, we talked about it over and over last year. The youngest team, one of the top teams out there, one of the youngest, just got a bit younger with all these guys that came on board. Gordon Hayward, a veteran that's off the books, off the team,
we don't talk
replaced by a couple of, or at least 3 brand new rookies. So this team just gets really younger, and they have to figure this out. They have to figure out how they make up for that production. Again, I talked about fourth quarter production. That's going to be a void that they need to fill. Floor general, for the people who aren't crazy about Marcus Smart's going to have to take on that new role again that we saw throughout the postseason. And between him, Jalen, and Tatum, there's a whole lot of getting used to that they need to figure out. I think that's really most important for this team heading into the season.
How did this happen?
I know, right? I know.
But beyond that, I don't want to be why didn't Danny know? But how does a guy come here and within a few months he has a degenerative knee problem?
He had 3 knee surgeries in Charlotte. So
I know, but it's
was on the books.
Did they skip the medicals? You know what I mean? Is
I don't know,
you have an all-star.
I feel like it's one of those things where you have a car.
I know he had surgery.
It's fine. You put a bunch of miles on it. All of a sudden, one thing leads to another. That's sort of what happened here. Kemba, of course, didn't have a lot of deep playoff runs with the Charlotte Hornets. He played a lot of games. He rarely missed games. He was an Iron Man.
He said that today too. Yeah.
As an undersized guard who's in his 30s or now approaching his 30s or into his 30s. There's a lot of miles on those.
He did a lot last year too. When you think about it, he had Team USA. He had the entire regular season.
He played 72 minutes in the All-Star game.
Like he said, since he signed, he hasn't taken a break.
Yeah. So that's another fact you have to consider.
Except for, the whole 4 months break that we had. Everyone.
He needed that.
Well, you got to consider too, Jimmy. They didn't have 4 access to him for the rehab stuff too.
Listen, I'm glad that he's going to be in rehab, at least with the Celtics trainers and doctors and that whole thing, because I don't know what the hell happened.
We'll never know.
In the bubble, I don't know. It was like the wild, wild west. Everyone was just doing their own. I was never worked out on their own before. I guess I don't know. But
I was hoping Grant would shed some light on that in the interview we had with him, but he didn't get into it. So we'll never know what happened there in Charlotte over that break there.
I'm did something to aggravate it there. Those guys are just hanging around.
No, I'm not saying he hurt himself or aggravated it, but if you're not doing something to help it, as they are now, then you're kind of just in the same place you were in February, if you know what I mean. Like, there had to be a plan. There had to be a program. Once they got back to Boston and then got into the bubble, they put him on a plan that actually seemed to work. And again, I'm not saying it's a good thing he has a knee condition. I'm not saying he can get back to being our all-star form. What I'm saying is you live with it now. You have to get on to something else and try to get the best Kemba that you can at this point. And if you get something similar to what he played at his highest level in the playoffs, it still looks like an extremely helpful player. Now you're going to get into, is he worth $30 million? Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. He's here. You'd rather have him than not. And even if you did trade him,
I'd rather have him on the court.
Yeah, as you propose,
we're really lowering our expectations.
Seriously.
Well,
that's what you do. I mean, it's we talked about this the other day.
I
John.
know,
this
but
isn't going
Bobby,
away.
man, you went from. We went from 2 seasons ago having so much talent, you didn't know what to do with this team.
Oh my God, Mister, one step back.
To now we're talking. You're not supposed to take steps back. By
you
losing
wanted to
players.
step back. You wanted to trade Hayward, trade Kemba.
No,
and
I
take
wanted to
one
trade
step back
Kemba.
and 2 steps forward.
I wanted to trade Kemba.
You don't just trade Kemba for nothing, though. If you were going to trade,
I was in on the holiday deal before this news. That's my step. Let's reassess here. Let's rebuild on the fly. Get rid of the stuff that's not going to work for you. Like Kemba might not work for you now. We're not in it for he'll be fine. This was supposed to be a star. You paid him a star contract. This is going to be the 3rd guy you've given huge bucks to come here and underperform their contract, okay? And Al was fine. We can debate whether he's worth the money or not. I'm actually more an Al fan than not. But statistically, you got what you got off of him. Gordon Hayward was a bust. Capital B, and we're not going to get into that later.
Don't say it to Bob.
Now you've got reduced expectations from year 2 of a 4-year deal with Kemba. That's terrible, Bobby.
They got a great first season out of him.
Oh,
now we'll see what he gets out of his second. He was an all-star.
He fell apart in the first season.
And you got a great last season from Gordon, right?
He fell apart pretty badly at the end there, for sure. But up until the middle portion of that second round.
Kemba pulls it together and then exercises his player option and leaves. He's going to spend 2 years getting injections in his knee, and he's going to have a great last 2 months of his 3rd year and then friggin' see ya.
He's going to have the healthiest knees in the NBA just in
$30 million.
Agency.
He's going to go get $30 million somewhere else.
Well, it seems now if he gets in the right free agency class, he'll get it even if he has knee issues, the way Hayward went.
I don't know.
This isn't a great situation. I'm just saying they're in a good place to make it work.
Oh, you think?
And we'll get into
They're
that.
in a good place?
They're in a good place to make it work.
Bobby.
No, I'm saying they're in a good place to make it work.
Oh my God. I saw a reputable member of the Celtics media today suggest Jeff Teague and Grant Williams start for this team. What are we doing here? If that's
one of them will have to.
If that's on the table, we're not in a good place, Bobby.
You still have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
But
how many teams in the NBA can say that?
10 minutes
but Bobby,
ago.
come on. Yeah,
Bobby,
I'm with John on this one,
you
Bobby.
also had Hayward and Kemba Walker.
I've been waving the Jaylen and Tatum flag this whole time. I'm with you in that sense. But without Kemba, this is a very different team. And this
is a very slightly above average team.
Things can get dark.
And Celtics fans hate that.
You can go down the line in the East. You can go down the line in the
hate
East.
it. Yeah.
And the Celtics
We're talking about January, guys.
We're talking about January if Kemba comes back and is at least the version we saw in the early parts of the bubble. That is not a certainty.
It's not out of the possibility.
But I know, but right now you've gone from a team that was a win away, of a couple games away from into the finals, even with some injury issues. And now you've just taken away 2 stars. Like, that's bad. It's hard.
Hashtag bad.
And added not added anything to replace those guys. Again, we're talking about you've replaced Cantor with Tristan Thompson. We're not going to talk about Thompson as an upgrade that's going to offset the losses of Hayward and Kemba. If Kemba comes back again and he's close to himself, it's less of an issue. But right now, the unknown is what's scary.
Wait, John, didn't you hear Thompson won the Celtics the offseason? We got to move on from Kemba. We got a lot of other things.
That was plan A, right, guys? That's what the Celtics had all along.
Okay.
If you want to do it, we'll do it. If not, then let's move on.
We'll move on. So